The wind moved through the empty streets of Dusk Point, carrying fine dust that clung to every wall and window. The settlement had been built long ago when the mines were rich with metals, but now most of the tunnels were silent. People lived in small shacks made from leftover scrap. They worked only to keep themselves alive. Eli was one of the few children in Dusk Point. At 14, he had never seen a city or a forest. He had never left the settlement at all. His father had worked in the mines until the dust sickness took him. His mother washed clothes for the traders who came through once every few weeks. There was never enough food, so Eli searched the old rail yards for anything he could trade. That evening, the sun was low behind the hills, painting the sky in faded red. Eli was returning from the far end of the maglev track. He had found a small bundle of copper wire and an old tool handle. They might be worth a little bread if he was lucky. As he walked past the bend where the track dipped into shadow, he saw something unusual. A figure lay on the ground beside the old track. At first, Eli thought it was a miner who had collapsed from exhaustion, but as he came closer, he saw the figure was wearing a suit of silver material that caught the last light of the day. The suit looked smooth, almost new, with faint lines of light running along the arms and chest. The stranger's face was half hidden by a helmet. The visor was clear enough for Eli to see pale skin and closed eyes. A faint sound came from the stranger, like someone speaking softly in a language Eli could not understand. He stood still for a moment, unsure what to do. People in Dusk Point kept to themselves. If someone was hurt, helping them could bring trouble, especially if strangers were involved. But the stranger looked weak, almost fading. Eli remembered the way his father had looked in his last days. Something inside him pushed him forward. Eli knelt beside the stranger and tapped the helmet gently. The eyes opened slightly. They were an unusual color, a deep gray that seemed to hold light within them. The voice came again, soft and tired. Eli could not make out the words, but he could tell the stranger was asking for something. He reached into the small bag at his side and pulled out his last flask of water. It was only half full, but he placed it near the stranger's hands. The stranger hesitated, then took it and drank slowly. The suit's lines of light brightened a little, as if the person inside was recovering strength. The stranger tried to sit up, but seemed too weak. Eli looked around. The old railcar nearby had been abandoned for years. Its roof was still good, and it would keep the night wind away. Without thinking more, Eli helped the stranger to their feet. The suit was lighter than he expected, though the stranger leaned heavily on him as they walked. Inside the rail car, Eli made a place for the stranger to rest on an old tarp. The stranger spoke again, a few short words in that same unknown tongue, then closed their eyes. Eli wondered if they had come from the traders' ships, or maybe from some far-off city he had never heard about. The light faded outside, and the chill of night began to creep in. Eli thought about telling his mother, but she would likely send him away from the stranger. She would say it was not their problem. Still, he felt he could not leave this person alone. He sat on the floor of the rail car, listening to the wind outside. Every so often, the stranger's suit made a faint sound, like a quiet hum. Eli felt both curious and uneasy. There was something about the stranger that did not fit with anything he knew. When the moon rose, its pale light came through a broken window, casting silver shapes on the walls. Eli pulled his thin jacket tighter around himself and tried to stay awake. He wanted to be sure the stranger did not wander off or get worse. But at some point, he drifted into sleep. Morning came with a dull gray light. Eli opened his eyes and looked to the tarp. The stranger was gone. The only sign they had been there was the empty flask and a small object placed where their head had rested. It was a piece of glass shaped like a shard from a larger plate. Strange lines glowed faintly inside it, forming symbols Eli had never seen. He picked it up carefully. As soon as his fingers touched the surface, the shard lit up and projected a faint blue light into the air. A map hung in front of him, floating as if it were real. Tiny points of light marked stars, and thin, glowing lines connected some of them. One point near the edge pulsed slowly, as if calling to him. Eli stared at the map in wonder. He had heard stories about the worlds beyond Earth, but they were only stories. No one in Dusk Point had ever seen anything like this. He stepped outside the rail car and looked toward the hills. The day had only just begun, yet the air felt different, as if something far away had shifted. Somewhere out there, the stranger was moving again, and now Eli held something they had chosen to leave behind. He had no way of knowing that this small act, giving a stranger his last water and shelter for the night, had already set his life on a path that would carry him far beyond the dust and rust of Dusk Point. Eli walked through the settlement with the shard hidden in his pocket. The glowing map still played in his mind, each star point so bright and sharp that he felt he could reach out and touch it. He wanted to show someone, but he knew what would happen if he did. In Dusk Point, anything unusual was quickly taken by traders or by the local overseer. If they thought the shard was valuable, they would take it away before Eli could even explain where it came from. The streets were already busy with the sound of metal being hammered and carts rolling over the cracked ground. People kept their heads down, each person focused on their own work. Eli passed a group of miners on their way to the old tunnels. Their faces were gray with dust. No one paid him much attention. At home, his mother was washing clothes in a metal basin. She glanced at him briefly and asked if he had found anything worth trading. Eli showed her the bundle of copper wire and the tool handle. She nodded and told him to take them to the trader's stall later. She did not ask what else he had found. Eli went to his small sleeping space and took the shard out again. The lines inside it glowed gently, almost like it was alive. When he touched the surface, the map appeared in the air again. He tried moving the shard and noticed the map shifted with it, as though it was following his movements. He brought it closer to his eyes and saw small marks around the pulsing point. They were symbols he did not understand. He wondered if the stranger had left it by mistake, but the thought did not feel right. The shard had been placed exactly where Eli would see it. It felt like a gift, or maybe a message. By midday, the trader's shuttle had arrived. A long, low ship settled onto the landing pad outside the settlement, kicking up clouds of dust. People gathered quickly, eager to sell their goods or buy supplies. Eli joined the crowd, but he kept to the edge. While the traders set up, Eli noticed something strange in the sky. A smaller craft was circling high above, silent and without any visible lights. It moved slowly, almost as if it was searching for something. Eli felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He remembered the stranger's gray eyes and the tired voice speaking in an unknown language. Later, as Eli passed the trader's stall, a man in a dark coat stepped into his path. The man's face was partly hidden by a scarf, and his eyes moved sharply from side to side. He asked Eli if he had seen anyone unusual in the last day. His voice was calm, but there was something hard beneath it. Eli shook his head and tried to walk away, but the man caught his arm. The grip was firm, almost too strong for an ordinary man. The stranger's voice dropped lower. He said they were looking for someone who might be hurt, someone wearing unusual clothing. Eli forced himself to look confused and said he had not seen anyone like that. After a moment, the man released his arm and moved on. Eli walked quickly to the edge of the settlement. He needed to be alone to think. He went to the abandoned rail car where he had left the stranger the night before. It was empty now, but the marks where they had rested were still visible on the tarp. He sat down and took out the shard again. As the map appeared, Eli noticed something new. One of the glowing lines between the stars was blinking faintly. It had not done that before. He wondered if it meant movement. or maybe a change in the path. He touched one of the star points, and the map shifted, zooming closer until he could see more detail. The blinking line led directly to the pulsing point on the edge. Whatever the shard was showing, something was heading toward that place. The sound of footsteps outside made Eli quickly hide the shard. A shadow passed over the doorway, and then a tall figure appeared. It was not the stranger from before, but someone wearing armor with a dull metallic finish. The helmet covered the entire face, and small lights glowed along the arms. The figure asked if Eli had been here the night before. The voice was deep and carried the same strange tone as the silver-suited stranger, but the words were in clear English. Eli said he sometimes came here to rest, but he had not seen anyone unusual. The figure tilted their head slightly as if listening to something far away, then stepped back and walked away without another word. Eli stayed in the rail car until the sky began to darken. When he finally left, he kept his head low and moved quickly through side paths to avoid the main street. He felt eyes on him even when no one was there. That night, as he sat in his small room, Eli could not sleep. The shard seemed warmer than before, almost as if it was reacting to something outside. He thought about throwing it away, but he could not. It felt important, like it was part of something much bigger than him. Then, in the quiet, he heard a faint sound outside. It was not the wind or the usual night noises. It was a low hum, steady and smooth. Eli looked out through the cracked window and froze. A sleek shape was moving over the settlement, so low that it almost touched the rooftops. It had no lights and made no noise except for that faint hum. The shape glided over the houses and passed beyond the hills. Eli's heart pounded. He was sure it was searching for the stranger, and if they were looking for the stranger, then they might also be looking for what the stranger had left behind. He lay back, staring at the ceiling, but his thoughts stayed on the shard in his pocket. He did not understand why it had been given to him or what the pulsing point on the map meant, but he felt certain of one thing. The day he gave water to a lost stranger was the day everything began to change. The morning sun rose over Dusk Point, turning the hills a pale gold. Eli sat outside his home pretending to repair an old basket. In truth, he was watching the settlement's main road. He had not slept much. His thoughts had been full of the shard, the pulsing point on the map, and the silent craft that had passed over the rooftops in the night. The market was quieter than usual. People spoke in low voices, glancing at the newcomers who had arrived early that morning. There were 4 of them, each wearing light armor that looked stronger than any mining gear. Their helmets had dark visors that hid their faces, and strange devices hung from their belts. They moved together, searching the streets and speaking to anyone they met. Eli saw them stop a miner and show him a small screen with a moving image. From where Eli stood, he could not see the image clearly, but the miner shook his head and backed away. The 4 strangers moved on without any sign of frustration, as if they had expected this answer. He tried to act normal, but his chest felt tight. The memory of the silver-suited stranger was clear in his mind. The newcomers looked like they might be from the same place, but their movements were sharper and colder. Eli decided it was best to stay away from crowded areas. He turned toward the salt flats beyond the settlement. Few people went there because the ground was hard and white, and the sun reflected off it so strongly that it hurt the eyes. But Eli knew there were old supply sheds near the edge, good places to hide if needed. He walked quickly, keeping to the edges of buildings. When he reached the last row of shacks, he glanced back and froze. 2 of the armored strangers were following him. They were not rushing, but their pace was steady. Eli's mind raced. He could not lead them to his home. He could not let them take the shard. Without thinking, he broke into a run. His feet pounded on the packed earth, carrying him out onto the flat white ground. The heat rose around him, and the glare made his eyes water. Behind him, the strangers followed without effort. One raised a hand, and a small object detached from their belt and unfolded in the air. It was a drone, no larger than a bird, with thin wings that shimmered like glass. The drone shot forward with sudden speed, closing the distance in seconds. Eli darted toward a low ridge of cracked salt. The drone swept over it and released a beam of bright light that cut across the ground in front of him. The beam was not hot enough to burn, but it forced him to stop. The strangers were still coming, their dark visors fixed on him. Eli's heart hammered. He reached into his pocket, gripping the shard without thinking. The moment his fingers closed around it, a sudden pulse of energy ran through his hand. The shard grew warm, and a flash of blue light spread out from it in every direction. The drone let out a sharp electronic sound and spun wildly before crashing to the ground. The two strangers stopped moving, as if surprised. Eli stared at the shard. He had not pressed any buttons. He had not done anything at all, yet the object had defended him. The strangers recovered quickly and began moving again, faster this time. He ran toward the old supply sheds at the edge of the flats. His legs ached, and the dry air burned in his throat. But he did not stop. When he reached the largest shed, he slipped inside and pushed the door closed. The interior was dark and smelled of rust. Eli crouched behind a stack of metal crates, trying to slow his breathing. Through a crack in the wall, he saw the strangers searching the flats. They moved carefully now, scanning the ground as if they expected another burst of light. Minutes passed. Then a sound came from behind him. Eli turned sharply, ready to run again. In the far corner of the shed, a shadow moved. It was not one of the strangers. The figure stepped forward, and Eli recognized the silver suit from the night before. The stranger was standing tall now, no longer weak. The gray eyes studied him, then glanced toward the crack in the wall where the strangers were visible. The silver-suited figure spoke in the same unknown language as before, then slowly switched to broken English. "You have it," the voice said quietly. "You must keep it safe." Eli wanted to ask questions, but the stranger raised a hand for silence. The suit's lines of light grew brighter, and the figure moved to the doorway. With a single motion, the stranger pressed something on their wrist. A thin wave of light spread outward from the shed. Outside, the two armored pursuers stopped in place, their movements frozen. The stranger turned back to Eli. "Others want it," they said. "They will follow you if they know you carry it. You must leave." This place soon Eli's mouth felt dry. "Leave Dusk Point. Where would I go?" The stranger only repeated, "Keep it safe." Then they stepped outside. The moment they passed through the doorway, the two pursuers began moving again, but their attention was now on the silver-suited figure. Eli stayed hidden as he watched the three of them move away across the flats. The sun was sinking lower, throwing long shadows over the white ground. When they were far enough, he slipped out of the shed and headed back toward the settlement, keeping low to avoid being seen. By the time he reached his home, the sky was turning orange. His mother was still working, unaware of what had happened. Eli went straight to his small sleeping space and closed the curtain. He took out the shard and looked at it closely. The pulsing point on the map was still there, and the blinking line leading to it seemed brighter than before. Whatever it meant, the shard was not just a map. It was also some kind of shield, and it was valuable enough that strangers from far away would chase him across the flats to get it. Eli placed it back in his pocket and lay down. He did not know what would happen next, but he understood one thing. Dusk Point was no longer safe. The hunters would not stop, and soon he would have to decide whether to run or fight. Night in Dusk Point was cold and quiet. The wind moved between the shacks, carrying the faint smell of metal and dust from the old mines. Eli lay awake in his small room, the shard hidden under his blanket. Every few minutes, he pulled it out, to check if it had changed. The glowing lines inside it shifted slowly, as if the map was alive. The pulsing point was still there, but now Eli noticed something new. Around the edges of the map, faint shapes appeared and disappeared. They looked like small marks, almost like paths or routes leading toward the pulsing point. He did not know why, but he felt sure the shard was trying to guide him somewhere. The next morning, he decided to visit old Karen. Karen was one of the oldest miners in the settlement, with deep lines on his face and eyes that always seemed to be searching the horizon. Some people said he had once traveled far from Dusk Point, maybe even to the big cities beyond the hills. If anyone might know what the shard was, it would be him. Eli found Karen sitting outside his small shack, sharpening a piece of metal. The old man looked up and gave a slow nod. "You walk like someone being followed," Karen said quietly. Eli sat down beside him and glanced around to make sure no one was close enough to hear. He took the shard from his pocket and held it out. Karen's eyes narrowed as soon as he saw it. He did not touch it right away. Instead, he studied it for a long moment. "Where did you get this?" Karen asked. Eli hesitated, then told him about the silver-suited stranger and how they had been weak and thirsty. He spoke about giving them water, about finding the shard in the morning, and about the armored hunters in the flats. When Eli finished, Karen let out a slow breath. "I have not seen one of these in many years," he said. "This is a navigational key. Long ago, before the mines here were dug, there were ships that left Earth to find new homes for humans. One of those ships was called the Ark Horizon. It carried thousands of people, sleeping in deep chambers, heading for a distant world. But the Ark never arrived. It disappeared into deep space, and no one ever found it." Eli listened closely, his hands gripping the shard. Karen went on, "I believe this. Shard belongs to that ship. It is more than a map. It is the only thing that can wake the Ark from its sleep and guide it to safety. If the stranger you met came from the Ark, then it means the ship still exists somewhere out there." Eli's mind raced. But why are those hunters after it? Because Karen said slowly, "Not all who travel the stars wish humans to grow strong. There are others out there, older and more powerful. If they fear what the Ark carries, they will do whatever they must to destroy it." Eli looked down at the shard. It felt heavier now, not just in weight, but in meaning. He had thought it was only a strange piece of technology. Now it was a key to something far greater. "You must leave Dusk Point," Karen said firmly. "The longer you stay, the more danger you bring to yourself and to your people. Leave to where Eli asked. There are traders who fly beyond the outer settlements," Karen said. "If you can find passage, you can follow where this shard leads. If the Ark can be saved, it will be because someone was brave enough to take it there." Eli thought about his mother. He thought about the narrow streets of Dusk Point and the only home he had ever known. Leaving felt impossible, but he also remembered the armored hunters and the frozen moment in the flats when the stranger had stopped them with a wave of light. Before he could answer, a sound came from the hills. It was a low hum, steady and deep, growing louder each second. Karen stood quickly and motioned for Eli to hide the shard. Over the ridge, 3 sleek crafts appeared, their dark shapes gliding over the settlement. People in the streets stopped and looked up. The crafts slowed, scanning the area with narrow beams of light. "They are here," Karen said. "Go now, before they see you, Eli." I slipped the shard back into his pocket and ran through the narrow side paths between the shacks. He could hear voices calling out in the streets. The hunters had returned, and they were moving faster than before. He reached the old rail yard and ducked inside one of the rusting cars. His heart was racing, and his hands were shaking. Through a gap in the wall, he saw the silver-suited stranger again. They were moving quickly across the yard, glancing over their shoulder. The hunters were close behind. Without thinking, Eli stepped out from the rail car and waved. The stranger spotted him and changed direction, heading toward him. When they reached him, their gray eyes were intense. "You must come," the stranger said in their broken English. "You have the key." They cannot take it. Before Eli could speak, a sharp sound split the air. One of the hunters had spotted them and was raising a weapon. The stranger grabbed Eli's arm and pulled him toward the far end of the yard. A blast of light struck the ground where they had been standing, leaving a scorch mark in the dirt. They ran together, weaving between the rusting rail cars. The stranger moved with speed and precision, guiding Eli toward a small hidden passage in the fence. They slipped through and found themselves on the open ground beyond the settlement. Eli looked back once. The hunters were forcing their way through the fence, but the stranger pressed a device on their wrist, and a bright wall of light flared up between them. It would not hold for long. "We go to the hills," the stranger said. "There is a place they cannot see us." Eli followed, his legs aching, but his mind set. He no longer cared about the danger. He had to know where the shard would lead, and why the arc horizon mattered so much. Somewhere beyond the hills, in the vast black of space, thousands of sleeping humans might be waiting for someone to wake them. And now, for reasons he could barely understand, that someone might be him. The hills beyond Dusk Point were sharp and rocky, with narrow paths winding between them. Eli followed the silver-suited stranger, their footsteps quick but careful. The air grew cooler as they climbed higher. Behind them, the hum of the hunters. Crafts faded, though Eli knew they would not give up. By the time they reached the far side of the hills, the sky had darkened to a deep blue. In the distance, Eli saw a small canyon hidden between two ridges. The stranger led him down into it. At the bottom, tucked under an overhang of stone, was a vessel unlike any Eli had seen. It was no bigger than a trader's shuttle, but its surface shimmered faintly, shifting colors as it caught the light. The stranger turned to him. "My name is Kalen," they said. Their voice was still halting, but clearer now. "You carry the key." "The ark must be found," Eli nodded, gripping the shard in his pocket. "Where are we going?" "Away from here," Kalen replied. "Others will help us, but we must reach them first." Kalen pressed their palm against the side of the vessel. A door slid open without a sound. Inside, the walls were smooth and curved, lit by soft strips of light. Eli stepped in, his eyes wide. The air smelled clean, almost sharp, unlike the dry dust of Dusk Point. The door closed, and Kalen moved to a seat near the front. They tapped a set of glowing symbols on the control panel. The vessel hummed, and a gentle vibration moved through the floor. Eli sat beside the window. Outside, the canyon walls seemed to sink as the vessel rose silently into the air. The hills slipped away beneath them. The settlement of Dusk Point became a scatter of lights far below. Eli felt a strange pull in his chest as he watched it shrink. It was the only home he had ever known, and now it was falling behind. The vessel climbed higher. The air outside darkened until it was almost black. Eli's ears popped, and then suddenly, the sky opened wide. Stars filled his vision, more than he had ever seen from the ground. Some were bright and sharp, others faint and far away. Kalen glanced at him. First time above the clouds, Eli could only nod. It felt like his chest was too full for words. They broke free of the atmosphere, and the curve of the planet came into view below, glowing faintly in the starlight. Eli pressed his hand to the window. The world looked small from here, a round shape floating in endless dark. Kalen adjusted the controls, and the vessel angled toward a distant cluster of lights. "That is the edge of the belt." Kalen said, "A place where traders and smugglers meet. There is someone there who can take us farther." The journey took hours. Eli watched the stars shift slowly as they moved. Once, a large shadow passed in the distance, its outline faint against the darkness. Kalen told him it was a mining hauler, hauling rock from the belt's inner fields. When they reached the belt, Eli saw dozens of ships drifting near a cluster of massive rocks. Some were lit with bright signs and strange symbols, others were dark and silent. The vessel slipped between two large asteroids and came to rest beside a wide, flat platform. A figure waited there, standing beside a patched-up cargo skiff. They were tall and thin, with a long coat and a hat pulled low over their face. When Kalen and Eli stepped out, the figure gave a crooked smile. "You bring me trouble again, Kalen," the figure said in a voice that carried amusement. "Only the kind. That matters," Kalen replied. "This is Eli. He carries the key." The figure's eyes shifted to Eli, sharp and curious. Then they motioned toward the skiff. "If we are going to talk, it will be out there. This place is watched." They boarded the skiff, and the figure took the pilot's seat. As they lifted away from the platform, Eli glanced back. He saw small lights moving among the asteroids. Kalen leaned close. "Those are patrol drones. If they scan us, they will know we are here." The skiff's engines flared, and the asteroids began to blur. Eli felt a faint pull in his chest as the ship accelerated. The figure at the controls spoke without looking back. "My name is Rin. I run cargo where the law does not reach. Kalen tells me you need to get somewhere far. That will cost you more than coin." Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out the shard. The moment Rin saw it, their expression changed. They slowed the skiff and looked at Kalen. "You were not joking. That is the Ark's wake key." Kalen nodded. "And it must reach the Ark before the hunters do." Rin's hands moved quickly over the controls. "Then we will have to take the long road. The short paths are watched. Hold on." The skiff shot forward, skimming close to the surface of a massive asteroid before diving into a narrow gap between two rocks. Eli felt the ship twist and shake, but Rin's hands were steady. After a few minutes, the space around them cleared. Ahead lay a deep black stretch with no stars, a tunnel of shadow in the void. Rin glanced back. This is a dark lane. No scans, no light, no watchers. But it is not safe. Keep your eyes open. They entered the lane. The stars vanished, and only the faint glow of the skiff's controls lit the cabin. Eli felt the air grow heavier, as if something unseen was pressing against them. Somewhere in the darkness, a faint ripple moved. Kalen's voice was calm but firm. "We are being followed," Eli turned to the window and caught a glimpse of movement. A shape, blacker than the lane itself, was closing in. He could not see its form clearly, but he felt its presence like a shadow in his mind. Rin's hands tightened on the controls. "Hold on, boy. This ride is about to get rough." The skiff's engines roared, and Eli felt the pull of speed press him into his seat. The shadow followed, but Rin twisted and turned through the darkness, diving into hidden channels between drifting stones. For a moment, Eli thought they had lost it. Then a sharp beam of light cut across their path. The shadow was still there. Kalen placed a hand on the shard in Eli's grip, and it flared with sudden blue light. The beam shattered, and the shadow drifted back. Rin gave a short laugh. "I think I like this key. Let us get you where you need to go." Eli leaned back in his seat, his heart racing. Beyond this dark lane lay the unknown, and somewhere far ahead the Ark horizon was waiting. The skiff moved through the black lane at a steady speed, weaving between drifting asteroids and glowing fragments of ice. Eli's hands gripped the armrests of his seat. Every now and then, he glanced at the shard. Its blue light pulsed softly, faster now, as if it knew they were close. Kalen sat beside him, eyes on the controls, but voice calm. "We are nearing the coordinates. The Ark waits there, in the edge of the nebula." Eli leaned forward, peering out of the small window. A swirl of colors appeared ahead, pale greens and golds twisting in the darkness. The nebula was massive, stretching across space like a river of light and mist. Within it, shapes moved, almost hidden by the glowing clouds. Rin guided the skiff carefully, the engines humming softly. "This is where it hides," Rin said. "The Watchers never come here. Only the brave or the foolish dare enter." Eli swallowed. This was both exciting and frightening. He had never imagined seeing something like this, something so vast and mysterious. The shard pulsed in his pocket, warm against his hand. He realized it was not just pointing the way. It was alive in some way, guiding him, waiting for him to act. As they drew closer, a dark shape emerged from the nebula. It was enormous, larger than any ship Eli had seen. Its hull was sleek, but covered in panels that shimmered faintly, reflecting the colors around it. The Ark Horizon. Kalen spoke softly. "There it is. It has been asleep for centuries. Waiting." The skiff slowed, and Rin maneuvered it alongside one of the Ark's docking bays. The doors opened with a hiss, revealing a cavernous interior filled with quiet darkness. The air smelled different here, colder and metallic. Eli stepped inside, awe filling him. The Ark was not abandoned. Small lights blinked across its surface, indicators of dormant systems. The corridors stretched far beyond his sight, silent but alive. Kalen guided him to a central chamber. In the middle of the room, a circular platform rose slightly from the floor. It had a slot, just the size and shape for the shard. "This is where it begins," Kalen said. "The Ark waits for someone to wake it." Eli approached the platform, feeling the weight of the moment. He pulled the shard from his pocket, watching its blue glow intensify. As he slid it into the slot, a pulse of light spread across the platform, then down the corridors. The Ark shivered, as if stretching after a long sleep. Panels along the walls glowed, and Eli could feel a gentle vibration under his feet. The air shimmered, and then a voice, calm and deep, echoed through the chamber. "Who awakens?" Eli stepped back, startled. He was not sure how to answer. "I am Eli," he said. "Finally, I found the key, and I think I am supposed to help you." The voice was silent for a moment. Then it spoke again. "You carry hope, human. Your courage has reached me." Eli felt a shiver run down his spine. Kalen nodded beside him. "You see, it was meant to be you," Kalen said softly, "not someone else. The Ark's systems came alive one by one. Lights pulsed along the corridors, engines hummed quietly, and a faint blue glow spread across the central chamber. Eli watched in awe. The ship was massive, far beyond anything built on Dusk Point. Yet it seemed alive, like it had been sleeping, and now was aware of its surroundings. "Why me?" Eli asked. The Ark waited for a response. Silent but patient. "Because you helped someone in need." Kalen said gently, "That stranger you saved." That act of kindness created a ripple. It reached far beyond your world. The Ark responds to those who act with courage and compassion. The hunters feared this. They feared what humans could become. Eli looked at the shard, now fully glowing. The room around him felt warm, alive, almost like it was breathing. Rin spoke from the side. "The Ark will follow your guidance now. But you must be careful. Others still seek to stop it. They fear what humans can achieve." The Ark's voice spoke. "Again, I am ready to navigate. Will you guide me?" Eli felt a surge of responsibility. The ship, the lives inside, the future of those who slept. It all depended on him now. He nodded. "Yes, I will guide you." Kalen placed a hand on his shoulder. "And I will be with you." Kalen said, "We will protect you." The Ark's engines thrummed, deeper, vibrating through the floor and walls. Lights along the hallways blinked in patterns that Eli could barely understand, but he sensed the purpose behind them. The ship was alive and aware, and it trusted him. The first step was to chart a course, through the nebula, past the belt, and into the vast emptiness beyond. The stars outside shifted as the ark moved with quiet power, and Eli felt a sense of wonder. He was no longer just a boy from Dusk Point. He was a guide, a protector, and a beacon of hope. Kalen turned to him. "You will see," Eli said. "When humans take the first step, they can reach far beyond what anyone imagined." Eli nodded, understanding the truth in their words. He had always wondered if people from Dusk Point could ever make a difference. Now he knew. One small act of kindness had led him here, and now he could change the fate of thousands. The ark moved forward, leaving the safety of the nebula behind. Outside, stars stretched endlessly, the universe waiting to be explored. Eli stood on the platform, looking ahead, feeling the pulse of the ship beneath his feet. For the first time in his life, he realized that humans were not limited by their home, their history, or their fears. They were capable of greatness, courage, and hope, and he was about to guide them into the unknown. The ark horizon had awakened, and with it, a new chapter for humanity began. Eli stood on the bridge of the ark horizon, the soft hum of its engines vibrating beneath his feet. Stars stretched endlessly outside the windows, vast and silent, yet full of possibility. Kalen and Rin stood near him, watching the readouts, and glowing maps projected in midair. The hunters were still pursuing them, their ships sharp and deadly against the darkness of space. Eli took a deep breath. This was the moment. They could no longer hide. The ark was awake, and it needed him to guide it. The shard in his pocket pulsed with energy, reminding him of the courage that had brought him here. Kalen spoke softly. "They will come," Eli said. "We must be ready." "I know," Kalen replied. "And the ark will follow your will." Outside, the hunters' ships emerged from the shadows. Their formation was tight and menacing, sleek craft built for speed and attack. Eli felt a rush of fear, but he pushed it aside. Fear would not help him now. Only clarity, courage, and quick thinking would save them. Eli moved to the central console. The ark responded instantly, lights flashing along the hull, engines adjusting to his commands. With a thought, he directed the ship toward a dense asteroid field nearby. The hunters followed, but their sensors were confused by the chaotic movements of the rocks and debris. Kalen watched, impressed. Not many could think like this in their first battle. Eli concentrated, moving the ark in tight twists and spins. The hunters struggled to keep pace. One ship collided with a large rock, spinning away into the void. Another tried to follow Eli into a narrow passage, but the ark's systems projected a decoy, a shimmering light that led it into a trap. The hunters were clever, but the ark and Eli were cleverer. Rin's voice called out from the side. "They are faster than you expected, Eli. But they underestimate you." "They always do," Eli nodded, his focus absolute. He could feel the ark's intelligence, flowing through him, sensing the paths, the dangers, the opportunities. Together, they were a single mind, human and machine working in perfect harmony. The hunters regrouped, trying a new approach. They spread out, attempting to flank the ark. From multiple directions, Eli adjusted the ship's shields and engines, creating a series of controlled pulses that pushed debris outward, creating barriers between them and the enemy. One by one, the hunters' ships were forced back, unable to penetrate the ark's defenses. Kalen smiled. "You are doing it, Eli." "You are showing them what humans can do." Eli felt a surge of pride. He had never imagined himself capable of such leadership, such strategy. Yet here he was, guiding a ship of impossible size and power through a battlefield, in space, outthinking an enemy that had hunted countless worlds. Suddenly, one hunter's ship broke through the barrier. It fired a beam of light toward the ark's hull. Eli reacted instantly, directing the ark's shields to absorb the attack. The ship trembled, but it held. Then he pushed forward, using the ship's engines to spin around and project a burst of energy from the Ark's core. The hunter's ship was caught in the blast, spinning away, disabled. Rin cheered. "That was perfect, Eli." They did not see it coming. Kalen nodded in agreement. "You are not just guiding the Ark, you are leading humanity." Eli looked out at the remaining hunters. They were fewer now, hesitant, wary of the Ark's power and Eli's strategy. He felt the shard pulse in his pocket, reminding him of why he was here. It was not just about fighting. It was about showing courage, hope, and intelligence. It was about proving that humans could rise above fear and limitations. He took a deep breath and made a decision. The Ark projected a wave of light across the field, a dazzling display that confused the hunter's sensors completely. Then, Eli directed the ship to accelerate, slipping past the remaining ships with unmatched speed. The hunters tried to follow, but the Ark's systems, guided by human intuition, led them into the wrong paths, leaving them behind in the darkness. Kalen clapped Eli on the shoulder. "You did it." "They cannot keep up with humans' courage and ingenuity." Eli smiled, a mix of relief and wonder. He had never imagined that one small act of kindness, helping a stranger, would lead him here. That act had set a chain of events into motion, culminating in this moment. Humans had shown that even against impossible odds, they could rise, think, and act with bravery. The Ark moved smoothly through space, leaving the hunters far behind. Ahead lay new stars, new worlds, and new possibilities. The nebula faded behind them, and the blackness of uncharted space opened before them. Kalen spoke softly. "The Ark is ready to take humanity further, and you, Eli, will guide the way." Eli placed a hand on the central console, feeling the pulse of the ship. Together they could explore, discover, and protect. Humanity was no longer limited to small settlements or hidden planets. They could reach the stars, guided by courage, kindness, and intelligence. Rin laughed quietly. "Not many humans could have done what you just did, Eli. But you are something special." Eli looked at the stars ahead and felt hope like never before. They had faced fear, danger, and powerful enemies. They had survived. They had shown that. Humans were not weak, not limited, and not afraid to act when it mattered. The Ark's voice spoke, calm and deep. Human courage recognized, guidance accepted, future unlocked. Eli felt the truth in those words. Humans had begun their journey to the stars, and it was only the beginning. One small act of kindness had shown the strength and potential of humanity. From a quiet settlement on a distant planet, they had risen to meet the universe itself. Kalen, Rin, and Eli stood together on the bridge. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of challenges, wonders, and new worlds to explore. Eli realized that the journey was just beginning. He was no longer just a boy from Dusk Point. He was a leader, a guide, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. The Ark horizon glided forward, engines humming, lights glowing, ready to carry humanity to new horizons. And Eli, with courage in his heart, led the way. The universe waited, and humanity was ready.